At 73 seconds into launch on January 28, 1986, Commander Dick Scobie acknowledged mission control's go-ahead with 4 words, "Roger, go at throttle up." 3 seconds later, the Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart in the sky above Florida. 7 astronauts, including teacher Krista McAuliffe, died. But the crew module survived the initial explosion intact. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, it fell toward the Atlantic Ocean. Evidence recovered from the wreckage showed that 3 of the crew had activated their personal egress air packs, emergency oxygen devices that can only be activated manually. The crew was alive as they fell. The investigation found the cause was a rubber O-ring in the right solid rocket booster that had failed in the cold January air. The flaw had been flagged by engineers the night before launch. Their warnings were overruled. Challenger was the 25th Space Shuttle mission. On the afternoon of December 5, 1945, 5 United States Navy torpedo bombers departed Fort Lauderdale on a routine training flight. Flight 19 never returned. Within 2 hours, their commander, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, was transmitting, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn." He reported his compass was not working and that he could not determine whether they were over the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic. The planes attempted to navigate by the sun but clouds obscured it. Ground controllers received increasingly confused transmissions. At 7:04 in the evening, contact was lost entirely. A PBM Mariner rescue aircraft was dispatched with 13 crew aboard. It also vanished. 27 people across 6 aircraft disappeared on December 5, 1945. No wreckage of Flight 19 has ever been definitively located. On July 2, 1937, Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan were attempting the last leg of a circumnavigation of the globe, trying to locate tiny Howland Island in the Central Pacific, guided by the Coast Guard cutter Itasca waiting offshore. At 8:43 in the morning, Earhart transmitted, "We are on the line 157-337. We will repeat this message on 6210. We are running north and south." The Itasca's radio operators could hear her signal clearly but could not establish two-way contact to give her their position. That was the last confirmed transmission. Neither Earhart nor Noonan was ever found. Their Lockheed Electra vanished somewhere in the Central Pacific. The official government investigation concluded they ran out of fuel and went down at sea. 89 years later, no confirmed wreckage has been found. At 7:55 in the morning on December 7, 1941, Lieutenant Commander Logan Ramsey watched Japanese aircraft begin their attack on Pearl Harbor and ran to the radio room. He ordered the signal sent, "Air raid on Pearl Harbor. This is not a drill." Within the first hour of the attack, 2,403 Americans had been killed and 1,178 wounded. 18 ships had been sunk or damaged, including 8 battleships. The message was received across the Pacific Fleet and in Washington within minutes. President Roosevelt called it a date which will live in infamy. The attack brought the United States directly into the Second World War. Diplomatic negotiations had been ongoing in Washington even as the attack was already underway. The Japanese fleet had crossed the Pacific in radio silence. Complete tactical surprise had been achieved. At 55 hours and 54 minutes into the Apollo 13 mission on April 13, 1970, Mission Commander Jim Lovell heard a bang and felt a shudder. He told Mission Control, "Houston, we've had a problem here." An oxygen tank in the service module had ruptured, crippling the spacecraft 200,000 miles from Earth. The actual phrase was "we've had a problem," past tense, not Houston, "we have a problem" as the film rendered it. The 3 astronauts abandoned the command module and crowded into the lunar module, intended for 2 people, using it as a lifeboat. Temperatures dropped to near freezing. Water rationing began. NASA engineers on the ground improvised a carbon dioxide scrubber from available materials and transmitted the instructions to the crew. On April 17, 1970, all three splashed down safely. The failure that nearly ended in catastrophe became, officially, NASA's finest hour. On November 22, 1963, at 12:30 in the afternoon, shots were fired at the presidential motorcade moving through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry's radio transmitted, "Dispatch, get men on top of that triple underpass. Look it over. Go to the hospital, Parkland Memorial Hospital." At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, President John F. Kennedy was pronounced dead. He was 46 years old. The Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Oswald was arrested 70 minutes after the assassination. 2 days later, he was shot dead by nightclub owner Jack Ruby on live television. Whether Oswald acted alone, and what motivated him if he did, has been the subject of investigation and conspiracy theory for more than 60 years. The full government files were not completely released until 2025. At 7:25 in the evening on May 6, 1937, the German airship Hindenburg approached its mooring mast at Lakehurst, New Jersey. Radio reporter Herbert Morrison was recording an eyewitness account for WLS Chicago when the ship caught fire. His words were broadcast across America the following day: "It's fire and it's crashing. It's crashing terrible. Oh, the humanity, and all the passengers screaming around here. I told you, I can't even talk to people." The Hindenburg burned and fell in 34 seconds. Of the 97 people aboard, 36 died. The cause of ignition has never been definitively established. Theories have ranged from a static electricity discharge to deliberate sabotage, to a design flaw in the ship's outer skin. The disaster ended the era of hydrogen-filled passenger airships. Morrison's recording remains one of the most recognizable pieces of broadcast journalism in the 20th century. In March 1912, Captain Robert Falcon Scott and 4 companions lay dying in their tent on the Antarctic ice shelf, 11 miles from their supply depot. They had reached the South Pole on January 17 only to find Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen had beaten them there by 34 days. On March 29, Scott wrote what is believed to be his final diary entry: "We are getting weaker, of course, and the end cannot be far. It seems a pity, but I do not think I can write more. For God's sake, look after our people." His body was discovered 8 months later, his right arm stretched over Edward Wilson, his closest companion. His diary was recovered alongside him. The tent was collapsed on the bodies and left on the ice. It remains there today, slowly moving toward the sea as part of the Ross Ice Shelf. On December 4, 1872, the British brigantine Dei Grazia encountered another vessel drifting erratically in the Atlantic Ocean between the Azores and Portugal. When the crew boarded the Mary Celeste, they found her abandoned. The cargo of 1,700 barrels of commercial alcohol was intact. Personal belongings were undisturbed. The ship's last log entry, dated November 25, recorded a position 400 miles from where the ship was found. The ship had apparently sailed on unmanned for 9 days. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crew members were never found. 1 lifeboat was missing. There was no distress signal, no note, no damage to explain the abandonment. A maritime court of inquiry could not determine the cause. The Mary Celeste remains the most famous maritime mystery in history, and the disappearance of her crew has never been explained. On July 30, 1945, the heavy cruiser USS Indianapolis, which had secretly delivered components of the atomic bomb to Tinian Island 4 days earlier, was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine in the Philippine Sea. Of the 1,195 crew aboard, approximately 300 were killed instantly. The remaining 900 went into the water. They were not missed. A reporting failure meant no one in the Navy knew the ship had not arrived at its destination. For 4 days and 4 nights, the survivors floated in shark-patrolled waters. Dehydration, exposure, and shark attacks killed hundreds more. When a patrol aircraft accidentally spotted survivors on August 2, only 316 men were still alive. Captain Charles McVeigh III was court-martialed for hazarding his ship. He was the only American captain to face court-martial for losing a ship to enemy action in World War II. He died by suicide in 1968.